Rah, rah, ah. We won't be seeing him for a while. Hello again. It's Wednesday night. We have just watched The Forest of Fear. And my thoughts are as follows. To begin with, it was rewarding to have an episode which was far more focused on the Doctor and Ian and Susan and Barbara, because we're the best one in the world, no matter how interesting this caveman malarkey is, it's not as interesting as this weirdo time traveller and his granddaughter and their unwitting teachers. So that was great. The episode had a very claustrophobic feel, even though they come out of the caves into the forest, which would suggest effective staging, which would lend itself again to talk about how theatrical the whole thing feels, and like a piece of theatre. So that's all good. It was good. It was interesting. Oh, first death in Doctor Who. Here's a fact for you, trivia fans, that any Doctor Who fan worth his salt should know. I should have known, but the old woman, for whom she doesn't even have a name, bless her, but the old woman died first in Doctor Who, murdered. And as my wife said, that's interesting. If you think about when this went out, what was it, 5:30 on a Saturday night? If you think about when this programme went out, the third episode in, we get a death. Not only do we get a death, it's strongly suggested we've got a murder that's happened. And this happens on a Saturday tea time. And now, to us now, as my wife has suggested, you kind of know the Doctor will look after his companions, and we kind of have an inkling if things are going to go wrong with them. This feeling might not bed itself in for some time yet, but nonetheless, the fact that we've had a murder so early on does up the stakes somewhat for everybody. You know, we've got no real sense if Susan's going to make it out of situations alive, or Ian and Barbara. We assume the Doctor will, because it's called Doctor Who, and it's already been established that he's the titular character. So, but anyway, that's interesting, isn't it? There's a death. We take death for granted in Doctor Who. It happens all the time. But suddenly, old woman dies. I come to quite like the old woman as well. She was good. Dead. Killed. Brown bread. Shocking. Anyway, so the whole caveman thing, that's ticking on fine. Primitive power struggle, bang on. In our more perhaps important power struggle in terms of this programme, it's dead interesting when you think about what we're watching. When you think about, there's a couple of ways to look at the early Doctor Who, and it is to say that it's not Doctor Who. There's a very Heath Robinson aspect to Doctor Who, you know, bits get clumped on and new mythology and ideas and things, and, you know, and so, you know, I'm not saying they were making up as they were going along, but it turned out they were making up as they were going along, you know. So watching this early Doctor Who with this character called the Doctor, who's a tosser. He's mean, he's nasty, he's selfish, he's childish, and to top it all, kids, spoiler here, and we may wish to brush over this, being Doctor Who fans, but he does, it's strongly suggested, he's going to clobber an injured caveman, you know, and do him in, probably. And you can't get away from it. Ian stops him. You know, Ian picks him up on it and he lies. You know, the Doctor's not very nice this early on in Doctor Who. He's not a nice guy. He's not the person we're supposed to want to hang out with. I'm not even sure if he's enigmatic or interesting or mysterious. I don't know. Anyway, it's very, very... I mean, when we say what is Doctor Who, when we talk about what Doctor Who is now, we've got a very good idea. But that's been arrived at in nearly 50 years' worth of effort. So it's very difficult to say what isn't Doctor Who. Oh, here comes my cat. Ah! It's very difficult to say, you know, if we're talking about what isn't Doctor Who, well, I think the key ideals that the Doctor represents in the programme, the key ideals aren't there yet. And that's fine, because it's a long journey. You know, if anybody is interested in Doctor Who, you should watch the early episodes. You know, it stands to reason. You've got to know what you're talking about. But fundamentally, there's interesting stuff happening here. And even if it's even if it's made more interesting and perhaps more palatable by the fact that we retcon it. I don't particularly like that word, but so if we retcon it, or at least if we put it in the context of everything that comes after it, it's still dead interesting. It's still good, and I still think that we need to reconcile how we feel about the Doctor now with this early stuff, and there's no getting away from it. You know, I make a promise that during this crazy process, when stuff comes up that directly contradicts everything else, we'll have a good think about it. I'm not going to spend days trying to fit everything together. There's plenty of people who've done that. This is more of an ad hoc, off the wall, Doctor Who, what is it kind of thing. Something else though, and this goes back to this idea of the key ideals and characteristics of the Doctor not being in place, and that's kind of something that we consider with Doctor Who. I really don't like the way when you get to the point in the story where there is any kind of decent level of communication between our travellers and the cavemen. It's so patronising. It's really patronising. It's really like, what does Ian say at one point? She doesn't understand friendship and this, that, and the other, or whatever. It's like, really? That doesn't feel like Doctor Who. It really doesn't feel like Doctor Who. I didn't like that. It made me unhappy. And if I'm perfectly honest, it felt... Now, Libby used this word, so it's not me, but I think she might be onto something. It felt a little bit almost racist. You know, and that's daft. Well, it's not daft because these cavemen, although they're being played by, you know, white British actors, they're gonna presumably have come from, you know, they're not us, but they're enough us to be treated with a level of respect, okay? And the programme doesn't. The second that you get an opportunity to see the cavemen out of their own context, the programme patronises them and treats them as thick. And I don't think they are thick. Didn't like that. That worries me somewhat. I mean, I'm not going to go overboard on it because it's part of the context of the time, you know, but that's not very Doctor Who to me. Doctor Who at least gives everybody the opportunity to be treated by respect. And as a programme, as a narrative, generally, you feel now that if you're a, you know, Alpha Centauri, a blobby alien with wiggly arms, or you're a mutt at the start of Braden Morbius, you deserve to be treated with a level of respect. You know, stuff it up, and the show will rip you to shreds. But felt a bit funny, that. Felt a bit weird. Probably rambled on enough. But just to say, it's very interesting how an entire tribe is able to not only overtake but lie in ambush for our heroes. And that was odd bit. I wouldn't say it was an odd bit of editing. It was an odd bit of conveniently ignoring what the truth of movement and time and stuff is. But then again, if there's one thing that Doctor Who does with great aplomb, it's ignoring the truth about time. Hello, Gaia. Right, that's it. It was good. Enjoying it. Much more appreciating Unearthly Child. These early episodes of Doctor Who. Much more appreciating them in the 25-minute chunks. Watching them in one fell swoop, and with the best one in the world, you just kind of go. But no, loving it. Great. Bring it on. Next one we can watch is Wednesday. I have to wait till the weekend. Oh well, life goes on. Live long and prosper and all that. Cheery bye. Live long and prosper. It's Star Trek. We Earthmen will tell you how to act and feel. We have compassion. And cavemen, they don't understand friendship. Anyway, live long, prosper. Bye bye.